All right, everybody, thank you. Yes, I was just in New Zealand recently doing a presentation on what I do for a living. I am a pomologist, which is a type of scientist who studies apples. Very strange profession, I know. And so I have put together a very brief version of one of those presentations. So what I study is called bitter pit. I study only Honeycrisp apples because that's all you guys will eat anymore. So this right here is a Honeycrisp apple that has bitter pit. You can see nasty spots on that apple. If you'd like to know what a healthy apple looks like on the inside, Felix, do we have a healthy-looking apple that you could, yes, maybe your safety protective glasses there. Yeah. Okay, Felix, if you can go ahead and put that over your head. Actually, you know what? Changed my mind. Felix, you want to just go ahead and rip that apple open with your superhuman strength? Everybody, Felix Verhines, he's very strong. So this is what a bitter pit apple looks like, and unfortunately 50% of Honeycrisp can end up with bitter pit in a bad year, and no one will buy an apple that looks like that because they also taste kind of bad. So we had to come up with a way to try to reduce that. So we used the scientific method as scientists, and what we did was we observed that the apples that had less calcium ended up with more bitter pit. And so we thought to ourselves, how can we get calcium to keep moving into those apples to prevent them from getting bitter pit? And so we came up with an experiment where we wanted to use natural chemicals that were already in the apple, spray them on the tree early in the development, and see if we can get apples to not develop bitter pit, okay? And so we sprayed them, and it actually worked. And we reduced bitter pit by like 30, 40%. It was really exciting. And as a result of that, you can see some of the pictures of some of the things that I do there. As a result of that experiment, what ended up happening is that's my friend Phil Schwalier in the corner there. He's a Michigan apple grower. And what he does is he and other apple growers fund something called the Michigan Apple Committee. And the Michigan Apple Committee gives us money to do research projects that they think will help save them money. In addition, the taxpayers provide money to the state, whether you like it or not, and the state thinks that it is useful for you to be able to buy apples. And so they give us some of that money as well to do experiments like this, okay? Oh, Phil also pays taxes. So what we noticed after that experiment is we noticed that a lot of the big fruit were ending up with bitter pit. And so we had to figure out why. So we started the scientific method over again. And that was our question. Do bitter pit fruit grow too fast? Is that what causes them to get bitter pit? And so we thought that maybe the fruit are growing so fast that they're breaking the vasculature, like the veins and arteries on the inside, and that's what's causing the problem. So we wanted to design an experiment to make fruit grow at different speeds. So, Felix, can you show us an example of an apple that's growing at the right speed? Yes. So this apple right here, show it off, Felix. See, it's beautiful. It's not too big. It's not too small. It's nice and red. That's a good-looking Honeycrisp right there. Excellent. Now this apple, this is what its growth rate looks like over the course of the season. You can see that it starts off very slow, and then it picks up. And it's similar if you want to think about like a baby, right? A baby starts off, it doesn't look like they're growing that much. They're still a baby for like a long time. Even though there's a lot of things that are actually happening, and that baby's changing in so many ways, and then suddenly they start doing everything all at once, and for the rest of their life, you know, you're just growing. You're learning new things. At least that's how it's supposed to be. And this is what the growth rate of a good-looking Honeycrisp looks like in our experiment. But we also saw that if we have an apple that grows too slowly, this apple right here grew too slowly. See how it's small? If you don't grow at the right rate, you end up being smaller. You're less mature. In this case, the apple's green. That shows you even how immature it is. That apple's not going to taste very good. It's probably going to taste somewhere between like an apple and a potato. And then, but there's another side, and you can see that new line up top, the yellow line there. If an apple grows too fast, see how it grows faster around about week 8 than the other sized apples? Those apples end up being too big. And what I have here is an apple that grew too fast. It's huge, it's red, it's mature, but it is disgusting. And I am just as strong as Felix. And you can see that it is nasty on the inside, right? Disgusting. So this has what I study as well as plenty of other issues with it as well. So what we were thinking is do apples grow in a similar way to people? Can people grow too slowly, mature too slowly? Can people mature too quickly? And so what we did was we thought about the Bible and what the Bible says about growing too fast. And maybe that means that people are trying to move out on their own, right? Maybe you're like 17, 18, and you decide, I don't need anybody anymore. I'm independent. I'm going to be out on my own. You might ignore the advice of wise people in your life, and you might become too self-reliant, thinking that you can do everything on your own. And the Bible gives us lots of examples of people like that. King Saul thought that he was ready to make decisions on his own without wise counsel. And the prodigal son, as we learned earlier, was somebody who struck out on his own before he was ready. And Moses, God used Moses to do great things, but very early on in his story, he was doing things without God asking him to, like when he slayed the Egyptian. But you can also grow too slow. And that's like avoiding challenges, not embracing accountability, clinging to things that make you feel comfortable. And you end up looking like that green apple, right, Felix? And so we have examples of that as well. The Israelites in the wilderness, they refused to actually grow up and do the things that God wanted them to do, so they never matured correctly. The disciples, throughout the New Testament, the disciples are asking questions to things that they should know by now, and you think to yourself, why don't you guys just grow up already? And then the Corinthian church, Paul was talking to them about how they're not maturing as quickly as they need to. And so when we think about apples, and when we see apples at the store, if you see an apple that looks like this, right? You won't even see this at the grocery store. You might see it on a tree, though. You can know that that apple probably grew too fast. And if you see an apple like our green apple down there, you can know that that apple didn't grow fast enough. Okay? Thank you very much.